Improv is my soul medicine, and I love sharing that with my cousin, Robert. He's a guy who I admired, envied, and was accused of having a romance with. It all started back in the 80s when we both joined the service. He joined the Army for 30 years in Special Forces. I joined the Navy for 28 years in Naval Aviation. He earned 4 stars for fighting in combat, or 4 Bronze Stars for fighting in combat, and I got the National Defense Medal just for showing up. We both would view the world from another person's perspective, but he definitely lived on the edge, and he lived his life his way. I was a little more cautious and a little more risk-averse. He had a Harley, I drove a Subaru. He won all his bar fights, and my one bar fight ended in a draw. I'm going to say, my ego says I have to call it a draw because that's what you call when you end up in the hospital. So our relationship really started to grow once we retired, because once we retired, we lost our purpose. That feeling of falling out of the sky without a parachute, not knowing what to do, where you're going, this, that, and the other. Our conversations were so rich and to the point. I mean, we would talk about our childhood demons, some of our military experiences, and even sometimes just too much information altogether. A few years ago, my relationship with my mother was really toxic, and it was so validating to hear my cousin say she was wrong. Robert had been to Iraq 5 times, Afghanistan 3 times, 1 tour in Kosovo. I did 5,000 hours flying in the nuclear command and control structure. We had like completely separate lives, but at that moment it felt like we'd never been apart. I got a phone call last Easter that he had suddenly died from a heart attack at age 59. I got a phone call from his sister saying, "Hey, would you mind saying a few words at the reception after the service? Some other people want to be speaking, no pressure." And I said, "Absolutely, I'd be honored to do this." So my wife and I, we fly out to Chillicothe, Ohio, which is a small town in southern Ohio. Not a lot of opportunity. You either have farming, working at a paper factory, or antique. We got in late Friday night. Service was the next day, Saturday in the morning. Now my cousin used to belong to a biker club. They would do a lot of nice things like Toys for Tots and Easter egg kind of stuff like that. It's just an excuse for a bunch of guys to ride their Harleys and go get drunk. So Saturday morning, wife and I are having a cup of coffee just a block around from where the church service was. So we hear all these Harleys arrive. It's like, it must be time to go to church service. So we go over, get in the back of the line with all these guys in their parking their bikes in their biker garb. No one's dressed up for it. And we get to the top of the stairs, and Kathy's looking at me wide-eyed. It's like, "What's your title?" The name's Jake. Then it dawned on me, he's like, "Oh yeah, you meant my military title. Okay, I got it now." And then she scurries off, and the service starts. So I grab a program. I go, "Oh wow, man, look, there's my name with the title." So why don't you just look at the title? And then it was right beside the word eulogy. So I've got 30 minutes to write a eulogy for my cousin right now. The Rolodex in my brain is just looking at every memory that I ever had of him. It's like, "Oh, that's way inappropriate, can't say that in church." It's like, "I don't have all the details for that." And it's like, "Well, maybe that one thing, that's bike accident, let me mention that." And then at the same time I'm going through the Rolodex, I've listened to the minister give his spiel, and he just happened to hit, "And when he had that bike accident, he came back." It's like, "Really, Reverend? Really?" It's like, I know I'm not baptized, but are you punishing me for this? Come on. So it's like, all right, all I got is the military theme. I have to go with this. There's nothing else. I got nothing else. And it's go time, right? And so the Reverend introduces me as the guy who knew my cousin the best in front of his mother, his sister, all his childhood friends, but the out-of-towner is the one who knew him best. So I go up to the podium, I take a breath, I look at this crowd of bikers in their biker garb, and I start off by saying, "No words could ever describe my cousin. He was an experience." He would tell you and let you know how he's feeling. There were no secrets of who he was. The good, the bad, the ugly came out, but he was able to keep government secrets even from his own family, because I didn't realize until I read the obituary that he was on the Saddam Hussein raid that pulled him out of the hole. That mission alone probably more than earned his right to be buried at Arlington Cemetery, but he would continue to do even more. And then I looked at the crowd and I said, and I'm so glad that he find his community so he could rebuild his purpose and come back together. And it's like, as y'all know, when you talk to Robert, you got to put your seatbelt on because you never know where the conversation's going to go. And then I started feeling, okay, this crowd's getting it. They're not going to chase me out of here with pitchforks and torches. I think I'm going to survive this. It's like, okay, now how do I stick the landing? How do I get out of here? At the front of the church, they had his uniform on a mannequin with all his chest candy for display. So I look over at the uniform and I say, from now on, whenever I see an Army uniform, I know that my cousin Robert has put his thread into that uniform, just like General Washington, General Bradley, General Powell, and every other veteran who's worn that uniform since the Revolutionary War. And at that moment, I felt every set of eyes look at that uniform. My love of improv got me through this unplanned event. But to be honest, life doesn't feel very improvised now with Robert in it.